What's up, guys? Uncle Freedom coming to you on the glorious and well-deserved day off. First things first, y'all, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend. After all, that is how we push more Pro 2A preparedness content out to the masses. Also, take a moment, check out another YouTube channel that provides valuable information that you enjoy. Somebody like Sam over there at Prep Medic is a great example, considering we're doing Stop the Bleed Month. So today, we're going to talk about massive hemorrhage. Specifically, M in the March algorithm stands for massive hemorrhage. Now, massive hemorrhage is characterized by uncontrollable bleeding, usually in this case from an arterial bleed. Now, arterial bleeding is a bright red in color. It's oxygenated blood, and it's akin to, like, when you puncture one of these, it's akin to like kinking a garden hose and letting it go. So something we're going to see with that is it's a very high pressure system. There is a lot of fluid involved in this scenario. There is also the possibility for like uncontrollable like venous bleeding. So think of your jugular vein a la Kentucky Ballistics, put your thumb in it. That would be a great example of uncontrollable bleeding from a vein puncture. So the body itself works a lot like your car's AC system, right? So you have a high pressure side and a low pressure side, arterial being the high pressure side and venous bleeding being the low pressure side of the system. That is a lot like the reason, like when we recharge the system on a car, you have to import through the low pressure side. It's kind of no different than IV medications are typically given through that kind of a system, right? Because if you perforate a high pressure line, it has the tendency to like do a rapid unscheduled disassembly. Just now, that's one of the reasons when we look at the human body that arteries are typically a lot more protected, right? In the world of like gunfighting, self-defense kind of world, emergency trauma medicine, the stuff that we're talking about is like the brachial artery. It's inside of your arm, in between, right? Your femoral artery, right? Like down inside of your thigh next to the bone. Carotid up here in the neck. You have the aortic artery, which is the main artery for the body here. It's right here above the heart. Those are the ones that we're looking at here, and there's a reason behind that. So specifically in defensive stuff, whether it's defensive marksmanship, self-defense, anything that requires lethal force, and even sometimes not, we are targeting arteries, right? If we look at like your femoral and your brachial, a lot of stuff, this is a Shivworks clinch pick, this is a trainer. There is no blade on this, right? It's got holes in it, blue handle. This is a trainer blade. If in a situation, I carry one of these every day. I carry the actual clinch pick at work. So if I had this, one of my targets for this is underneath the arm, right? Because that allows me easier access to something that stops fights. Same thing, plow through the legs, same deal, right? When we start talking about fights, I make this distinction a lot, which is if you don't hit a switch, being a CNS activate, central nervous system deactivation, you are starting a timer. That timer is dependent on how long it takes you to lose enough fluid for a system to quit working. To make that system lose fluid, you have to cause loss. So that is where things like your brachial, femoral, aortic arch, that kind of stuff, that's what we're looking for with those kinds of things. But you also have like the carotid. If you've ever been blood choked in the Army, that's a carotid choke, man. You cut off the blood supply to the brain, you go to sleep. That's how it works. That little Judy chop, that actually works, right? You're creating a disruption in the blood system of the brain, causing things to shut down. So while yes, a carotid attack with something like this is very much so lethal, a lateral neck restraint is not. Now, when we start talking about your aortic arch, right? So you have like your heart, right, sits in the middle of your chest. You have this massive arch of like an artery above it, and that is known as your aortic arch. That is the thing that starts this entire series of events off, right? That is one of the reasons. There's also the pulmonary artery up there too. That is one of the reasons when we start shooting, we are aiming high upper thoracic cavity, right? We are attempting to put a hole in something that will stop the fight sooner. Now, when we look at it, the reason when we start talking about massive hemorrhage, though, that it comes up almost instantly that we are referring to a tourniquet is because for over 20 years, everybody that was involved in combat wore plates, right? We all wore ceramic level 4 body armor. Cops all wear, soft level 3A armor. Depending on what you do, you may have plates, but we're wearing that covers our upper thoracic. So that means that typically when we see a wound with significant trauma that involves the ability to have to stop massive hemorrhage, it's on an extremity, right? Or if not an extremity, it is in a junction. That is where we see those huge problems kind of arise. And that's the reason that tourniquets were so kind of goated as what you need to have. And I still believe wholeheartedly that a tourniquet is the easiest medicine that you can learn to practice. Now, something that we need to keep in mind, right? So damage to your brachial artery, to your femoral artery, can remove your ass from the gene pool in a very rapid amount of time. We're not talking about, oh, I got minutes to solve this. We're talking like we realized there was a problem, and by the time we started doing stuff about it, we were almost out of time to begin with. And that is something that is just massively important, especially when we start talking about tactical medicine or emergency medical intervention. That is the stuff. And again, it's characterized by that bright color of the blood. There is nothing that looks like arterial blood. When you see it, you're like, man, that is red. Arterial blood. So when we start talking about this in the civilian day-to-day, right? Like very few people wear body armor all the time. But here's the thing, people that wear body armor are still in danger all the time, right? In fact, the reason people wear body armor for like a specific job is because their job puts them into a place where that kind of stuff happens. So you take the steps you can, right? Now, there is another side to this for massive trauma, right? Like outside of just the gunfight scenario, right? Think car wrecks. If you have a guy that gets in a car wreck and he destroys his femur, you know what's really close to your femur? Your femoral artery. It is not out of the range of context, and it's very easy, as a matter of fact, even in moving that patient, that you could perforate that. And perforating, again, leads to like very rapid, unscheduled disassembly of that artery itself. It just tears apart because it's a high pressure system. Now, when we start talking about the wounds that we would see, right? On an extremity, your arms, your legs, there is no greater option than the tourniquet. It is simple, it is effective, it is easy to use. You can talk people through it that have never even seen one before. It is incredibly simple to stop bleeding with a tourniquet. Now, I will say this caveat, tourniquets are not always guaranteed to be effective, but they are the most effective option you've got. So having more than one is always preference. But there are also places where you may not be able to put a tourniquet, right? Like I mentioned with the trainer blade, like if we got under here, you can also get straight into here, right? Straight into here, straight underneath here, straight into the pelvic side of stuff, right? We have things that matter there that can cause you to bleed out pretty rapidly. Down here at the base of the neck, on the neck, right? Those require a different solution, right? Because you can't tourniquet that guy's neck no matter how much you dislike him. You need the ability to pack that wound. And when I say pack that wound, I mean that very, very vividly. I mean, you're going to take your finger and you're going to stick that digit inside of the hole and you're going to find where it bleeds and you're going to push your finger down on it. And then I'm going to take something as simple as a packet of S-roll gauze from North American Rescue. Could also be a hemostatic agent like this Celox here. If I rip open this other case in here, we can go with everybody's standby combat gauze, right? So a hemostatic gauze has an additional agent on it that is going to promote the clotting factor of the blood in the system. It's going to help it to bind together, get it sticky in order to help stop the bleeding faster. But if you don't do it right, it doesn't matter. If you don't get direct pressure on what's bleeding, it doesn't matter how good your quick clot is. It's not going to work. That said, there's very little as good as just gauze, right? Direct pressure and gauze for things in that junctional area, the neck, inside of the armpits and the shoulder, inside of the the hip area, right? I can't put a tourniquet on that, but I'm going to take that gauze, I'm going to stick my finger in that hole, and I'm going to find out where your blood is coming from, and I'm going to push it down. And then I'm going to take my gauze, I'm going to make a ball, and I'm going to replace my finger, and I'm going to keep packing as much as I can fit into that hole, as tight as I can make it, because I need you to stop bleeding, right? So while this is the easy button, right, it's very easy to say carry a tourniquet, because this does solve a lot of the needs for massive hemorrhage. But y'all ain't wearing armor every day. Maybe you are, but most people are not. So having the ability to pack a wound is incredibly important, and it is not to be understated. And it is just as important to carry some kind of a gauze, a wound packing media, and the ability to hold that thing in place. Think a SWAT T, an ACE wrap, something, right? We need to be able to hold that pressure in place permanently until we can get them to a higher level of care. Remember, we are buying time. We're not solving the problem. So when we talk about tourniquets and gauze and stuff, right? What kind of gauze do you need to buy? Dude, there is literally no difference from the Curlex gauze that you buy at Walmart and the 10-pack of 2-inch roll gauze than there is this stuff. This is just fancier. Outside of that, man, gauze is gauze. Your t-shirt will work just freaking fine if you don't have any gauze. As far as hemostatic agents go, Celox, the Rapid Ribbon, is pretty good. But personally, for me, my two favorite are Kaido gauze, like Kaido XR, or the combat gauze stuff from Quick Clot. Now, something to keep in mind, you will see a lot of things like this and this are not the same. This is 5 feet of gauze, right? This is 4 yards. So this is 12 feet of gauze. That is a lot more packing material for that wound, right? So more is always going to be better. I always tell people, dude, man, what do I need to add to my trauma kit? You put more gauze in that thing, put more gauze in it, right? Gauze is a awesome solution for 90% of the problems you're going to face. Even if we go to wound care and just lacerations and cuts, right? Gauze solves that problem. You may not need a tourniquet to solve that problem, but gauze will absolutely solve that problem, right? There's nobody that says I can't make a little rope, pack a laceration on the arm, take the rest of that gauze, wrap it around that thing to provide stability onto it, take an ACE bandage, put a little pressure on it, good to go, man. Send you on to the hospital, get some higher level of care, get yourself stitched up. I don't necessarily need a tourniquet to solve that problem, but it can still be an issue. We're talking about life-ending bleeding on the level that it is going to remove you from the ability to deepen or shallow the gene pool in minutes of total time. We're not talking about something we have an hour to mess with, right? Everybody's had a deep oozing cut that just bled for a while. And you put pressure on it, it stopped, you bump it, it bleed again, right? Now, when we start talking about tourniquets, tourniquets are different. There are a ton of tourniquets on the market. You get on Amazon, there's 400 different tourniquets you can find. There aren't. A good place to start for tourniquets is the TCCC manual. You will see things like the Rev Medical tourniquet. You will see things like the SAM XT. You will see things like the North American Rescue CAT, or the Combat Applications tourniquet. And you will see things like the TACMed Solutions Soft T. You cannot go wrong if your tourniquet comes off that list. They are going to work. The problem lies when we get cheap and we buy a 3-pack of tourniquets on Amazon for $50 because that seems like a great deal. Here's the problem. You don't find out that tourniquet doesn't work until you're applying it to somebody in real life and that guy doesn't make it or you don't make it. It would be an awful shame for the last fleeting thought through your brain as you've had a range accident or if you carried a SIG and crap went terribly bad, right? It would be a really crappy last thought to be like, man, I wish I'd have just bought the real tourniquet, right? Your family's worth it. You're worth it. Spend the money, buy a real one. My two personal favorites, the soft T right here. So the special operations tourniquet. This is made by TacMed. This is my favorite tourniquet for using on another person. And that is because if I am in like a car wreck, I can take this guy apart, put it on, saw it up, and then put it back together, right? It's not as easy to do that with a cat tourniquet. I will say though, a cat tourniquet, absolutely the easiest solution if you're gonna have to put it on yourself. There is no tourniquet as good as a cat for self-application. I'm sorry, there's just not. Now, I know a lot of you have asked me about the Snake Staff systems, their EDC tourniquet. I reached out to Snake Staff. We had a good conversation. I am going to get some in. There will be an additional video this month where I talk about those tourniquets. Real life, would I recommend them or not? So once I get those in hand, if you're not on Instagram, you'll see it there. You'll definitely see it on Patreon first, and then you'll see it here as we move on. Now, I have heard this said recently, and it just, I don't typically just want to like haul off and like Will Smith slap somebody, but I wanted to haul off and slap this dude. And he said the words, "It's okay, I don't carry a tourniquet because I can make one. I have the training." Bullshit. Like, dude, there's something in the order like 70 to 80% of all improvised or austere tourniquets fail. They don't work. You will never get an austere tourniquet to work as well as an actual manufactured tourniquet. It's not going to happen, man. It's not how that works. Right? I'm sorry, it's not. It is not how that alternate reality plays out. If you don't have a tourniquet on you and you must manufacture a tourniquet, first off, your planning sucks because you didn't have a freaking real tourniquet. Second, if you must manufacture, it better have been something you practiced before. Now, for example, I will typically have cravats in my bag, and a cravat is that large, like triangular bandage. We call them drive-on rags, a whole bunch of other names in the military, but I will typically have a few of those in there. If we're at the point where I'm manufacturing a tourniquet, that is what I'm grabbing, right? Because I have done it so many times, I know how to make it effective. It will still, even in my hands, with my experience, never be as effective as a cat. It's not gonna happen. So don't hedge your bets in favor of that. Have real tourniquets, okay? Now, on to my favorite tourniquet. And this is where, lesson, we're gonna talk about staging this thing, right? Because see this? This is not how this goes in your trauma kit, right? You in the back, right? The guy that said, "Oh, it's all right, I know everything there is." No, you don't, right? So be quiet. Adults are talking. This is not ready to go in your kit. This is nowhere near ready to go in your kit. This is simply an item. So let's say I'm on the range. I am with a gentleman. This gentleman is running a SIG. Man, I watched some of that SIG interview with Mac. Accountability wasn't even in the building with us. That was the most tone-deaf interview I've ever witnessed in my entire life. Nothing against Mac. I like Military Arms Channel. I'm talking about SIG. SIG's response. "Well, you see, when you got a light on your gun, you can stick your finger inside of it and do that right." Yeah, and if I had done a few more things right, I would already be a millionaire. Dude, people have been running Glocks with lights on them forever in that Safariland holster. Nobody's ever heard of that thing pulling its trigger and shooting, okay? Cope harder, bro. That is the most tone-deaf. I hate when companies do crap like that, man. Just own it. Hey, bro, we got a problem, right? Anyway, let's say your buddy is there, and a round has gone into his thigh, connected with his femur, and severed his femoral artery. You now have roughly maybe 45 seconds to really start solving some problems, if that long. Maybe not even that long, right? You now have to get this out, get it in the proper positioning, and then apply it, right? Versus having it staged, and a staged tourniquet, I can just do this. apply tourniquet and go. Stage your gear, it's important. So let's stage this one so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about, right? So first and foremost, let's get into this guy. You see how hard it was to get that plastic off, right? I do this all the time, and it still took time I didn't have. Take your piece of paper, you don't need that. And then you have this. Now, why do I say this isn't staged? It's not staged because I can't use it. So let's stage it. You saw how it comes out of the package. You now know why it's not staged. Tear that guy open, kick it all completely out, stretch it all the way out, pull the slack out, right? That's what we're going for. Now I'm gonna take this guy, make sure we don't have any loops. I'm gonna take this. I wanna make a handle. I want a handle about, how long is that? About 6 inches long, right? So what that means is that's folded back onto itself. And now I'm gonna take my tourniquet, and I should have something that looks a lot like this, right? I have this pull tab here where I folded it. Now I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna fold this pull tab over onto the exposed hook. I'm gonna take my hook now, because remember this is smooth, right? I'm gonna take my hook and I'm gonna fold it back over the top of it. I'm gonna settle that in the middle. And you know, you would see this, don't do this, right? There are times if it's on your weak side, your sling will pull this out of your stuff. So fix my timestamp off to the side. So now I can just use it. Now I would put this into my kit. This is ready to go. Somebody's gonna ask, what is the difference, right? So let's say this is on my person, right? I reach over, right? This hand is all jacked up, right? I reach over, I grab this out. I do this. Look at that. I have a loop and a pull tab, right? I can now stick this in my arm and go to work, right? I can tighten that down. I can do all kinds of stuff. That's why we stage our kit, gentlemen. So again, pull it through. I'm gonna, like I said, about a 6-inch long handle here. Put it back onto itself. So I have slick Velcro. Fold that back down on top of it right there, like so. Fold this guy back up on top. Sit my windlass down inside of its notch. And there I go. I have a perfectly staged tourniquet. At any point if I needed to grab this, I grab, I shake, and I have a loop, right? That's how we stage tourniquets. Maybe you have your own way of doing it, but in the plastic is never the answer, and it needs to be said out loud for those of you in the room. So today was massive hemorrhage. A lot of information. I apologize if my speech patterns were off. I'm having some issues right now with fit, but that is par for the course and something that I will work my way through. But I needed to get this video done. I wasn't able to get it done. I had a bunch of stuff going on, and it just kind of led to putting me behind the 8 ball. So guys, M-Massive Hemorrhage, the mighty tourniquet. How do you stage it? It's all here in this video. Hopefully you found this informative. Share this video. This stuff needs to get out to more people, because the more people that have this information, the better prepared we are, the safer we are, and the better able we are to deal with these events if we find ourselves, because you don't get to pick when you have to provide this treatment, okay? For the love of God, get a real tourniquet. Get you some compressed gauze or standard roll gauze. Get you a thing of combat gauze, though not as necessary as people would make you think. And learn how to do this stuff. Stage your tourniquet. Buy a spare one. Learn to stage it and practice putting it on. Practice. Put it on this arm. Put it on this arm. Put it on your leg using both hands, right? Get out there and practice. Guys, the thing I will say, if you've only got one tourniquet, be careful stressing that material over and over again for training, because when the day it decides it doesn't want to work anymore, you don't want that to be when you really need it, right? So buy 2, get some training. How many tourniquets should you have? You got 4 limbs, man. You your math, right? For me personally, like if I'm on the range, there are at least 5 tourniquets on the range, just for me. Everybody that shoots with me has a minimum of 2. And then you start looking at the other side, like my Everly stock bag, which actually saw its first deployment operationally this morning, right? My Everly stock medic bag from the Mission E-Mod system, it saw its first deployment on a hit on a building today, right? So pretty cool system. I like that bag a lot. I can't wait to show you guys it. So guys, I am Uncle Freedom. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And until next time, I'll see you later.